Charles SirBookSage here, and this is episode 7 of my 52-part Harry Potter First Time Reread series. If this is your first time here finding this, I am rereading the entire 7-book series for the first time. I've broken it up into 52 different chunks, so every Sunday for a year, I'm going to be going through the Harry Potter series, reading a set of chapters, and recording a weekly vlog on my thoughts on those chapters. This week, it is episode 7, and I am covering chapters 10 through 13 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Now, last week we left off with the trio needing to make the Polyjuice Potion, and the formula for it is contained in a book that's in the restricted section, so they have to figure out how to get their hands on the book. So now let's get started. Chapter 10, the Rogue Bludger. Now, the story picks up here, they're back in class, and we get to see, after the disastrous first day of Professor Lockhart's Defense Against the Dark Arts class, he decides he's better off just regaling the students with all of his adventures. And this is, and pretty much instead of teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts, he's telling them of all of his great deeds and escapades and all the ways he stopped werewolves and all sorts of things. And kind of sort of acting them out and using Harry as a prop. Always using Harry as kind of the monster he fought. And this is pretty much how they're spending their time instead of actually learning anything real. But Hermione does use his own ego against him, Lockhart's, and kind of butters him up and gets him to sign the permission slip to get that book out of the library. So they get the book out of the restricted section. They go to the Moaning Myrtle's bathroom that no one uses, and they comb through the formula. And Hermione realizes it's an extremely complicated one. There's tons of ingredients, some of which they're going to have a hard time getting their hands on. And it's probably going to take about a month before the potion could be made and be ready. And that's... who knows how many people are going to get attacked or even killed at some point in that month. So they're kind of worried about that. But the bigger part of the chapter here is the Quidditch match. It's finally time for Gryffindor versus Slytherin. Earlier in the book, we know that Draco had his dad buy brand new broomsticks for the whole Slytherin team. So now he's the Slytherin seeker. He pretty much bought his way into the team. So it's Harry versus Draco out on the Quidditch pitch. And right away, we have the Bludger, which is the Rogue Bludger, which has been enchanted to go after Harry. And I liked the way Rowling wrote this. She actually did a really good job making this exciting and getting the danger across. And I love Fred and George, that they just stuck by Harry and protected him as much as they could. That keeping their friend safe and alive was far more important to them than winning a match. But Harry is determined not to be the cause of Slytherin beating them. He will not allow Draco to win. So he tells them to just, no, go play the game. I'll take care of the Bludger. And so he's flying around and the Bludger's after him. And we hear Draco, like, laughing at him and making fun of him. And here it's an interesting moment with Draco because we see Draco is not experienced. He shouldn't be the Seeker. He doesn't really know what he's doing. And instead of looking for the golden snitch while Harry's off trying not to get killed, he's just sitting there watching and laughing. And the snitch is like sitting right next to Draco and he doesn't even notice. And Harry, being Harry, just goes for broke. Speaking of breaks, the Bludger breaks his arm. And he just goes full speed ahead and just sacrifices everything to get that snitch. He manages to get it. They win and then he passes out. And then, of course, Gilderoy Lockhart comes along, and rather than letting them go to the hospital there, the infirmary, to be healed, Gilderoy's going to do it himself and screws it up. Not only doesn't heal broken bones, but gets rid of all of the bones in Harry's arm, which I just thought was hysterical. Again, Gilderoy Lockhart just entertains the ever-living crap out of me throughout this whole book. And so Harry's off to the infirmary for the night, and he's got to drink this Skelliglow or something like that. I think I wrote it down here. Yeah, Skelligrone, or Skelliglow link drink. And he's going to endure an agonizing night of the bones growing back slowly overnight. But here we have at night, we get Dobby finally returns, which is pretty cool. I liked Dobby at the beginning of the book. We get more of Dobby being Dobby. Apparently he's had to iron his fingers because he burnt Lucius Malfoy's dinner one night. But we learn a lot of things here. We learn, one, that house elves are really kind of just slaves. And the only way they can ever be set free is if their master gives them the gift of clothes. Which is why Dobby's wearing this disgustingly dirty pillowcase as his only clothes. But we also learn that Dobby's the one who closed off platform 9 3/4, so they couldn't get on the train. Dobby's the one who enchanted the Bludger to go after Harry, because he wants Harry hurt enough to be sent home, because he wants Harry out of the school, because he knows the chamber is open or going to be open. He knows what's coming because the Malfoys have been talking about it in the house, and he's not allowed to go against his master and just tell Harry directly. So even if he's got to break Harry's bones, he's going to make sure Harry gets the hell out of there. And Harry, of course, won't go. But while they're having this conversation, they hear footsteps, Dobby disappears, and here comes Dumbledore and McGonagall with Colin Creevey, who's petrified like this with his camera. Which is another little good bit of foreshadowing and laying the foundation once we learn what's going on and what's doing this, why they're only petrified and not dead. We also had learned from Dobby, though, before he vanished, that there is indeed a Chamber of Secrets, and it's been opened before. So that was like a big piece of information that we get in this chapter. So surrounding the whole exciting Quidditch match, the main point of the chapter is getting that information across. That there is a chamber, and it's been opened before, and terrible things happened, and terrible things are going to happen again. And a nice, quick, fast-paced, exciting chapter. And now chapter 11 is the Dueling Club. And Harry's finally out of the hospital, tracks down Ron and Hermione. They're working through the potion. They've started on it already with whatever ingredients they currently have because they want to try to speed up the process, because now that Colin's been hurt as well, they don't have a month if they can help it. And they continue down this path assuming that the chamber's been opened by Draco, that Lucius must have opened it whenever it was opened in the past, and he's shown Draco how to do it. And like in the first book, they went down the wrong path thinking it was Snape and not Quirrell. Now they're doing the same thing here, just assuming it's Draco. That has to be Draco. So, and Hermione, out of all of them, is, because she's determined to do the right thing, she's now the biggest rule breaker out of the three of them. She's like, if we're doing this, we're going to do it, and we have to do whatever it takes to get done. So they plan a diversion. Harry throws the firecracker, Fred's firecracker, in, I think, Goyle's pot, and it explodes, and this potion that makes everything kind of grow splatters all over these people. So while Snape is tending to them and giving them antidotes, Hermione sneaks into his office and gets the last bit of ingredients that they need. And now we've got about 2 weeks to go until the potion's going to be ready at this point. So Hermione did get them to cut down the time here. But before we can get to any of that stuff, before the potion's going to be ready, there's an announcement that there's going to be a new dueling club. And, of course, the three of them are eager to participate. And as long as Harry's like, as long as the instructor is not Lockhart. And as he's saying it, here comes Lockhart. And Lockhart and Snape are going to demonstrate. And, of course, Snape slams him into the wall with his spell, and Lockhart laughs it off as he meant to do that, and he allowed him to do that. But then Lockhart has this stupid idea of pairing all the kids up against each other and just have them start dueling, which descends into absolute utter chaos. Harry and Draco start duking it out. Hermione ends up in a freaking headlock from the other woman, the other Slytherin woman, where she's basically getting beat up by this Slytherin girl. And everyone's settled down, and then it's just a one-on-one with Harry and Draco, and this is when Draco pulls out the snake. And here we learn that Harry's a parcel mouth, where he can talk in the language of snakes, which freaks everybody out. And this is a great callback to the beginning of book 1, when Harry and the Dursleys went to the zoo, and Harry helped the snake born in captivity escape. And he talked to the snake there, and it was just this minor little thing, and Rowling obviously smartly didn't make a big deal out of it. There was no indication that Harry was speaking in some weird snake language. But it's a great, great like foundation for this moment here in the second book. And then we learn, of course, from Ron and Hermione, that parcel mouths are very rare. And Salazar Slytherin himself was a parcel mouth, which is why the snake is the symbol of Slytherin house. And that it's kind of a trait among just some very powerful dark wizards. So now everyone starts thinking that Harry's the heir of Slytherin, that he must be descended from Salazar Slytherin somehow. So now everyone's terrified of Harry in the school, all the students. And there's a big confrontation in the library with him and Hufflepuffs. They think he's after Justin, because Justin thought Harry was sicking the snake on him. And then, of course, Harry storms off, bumps into Hagrid, and Hagrid's complaining about something killing roosters. And then Harry storms off again still, and he stumbles across the petrified Justin and a petrified nearly headless Nick floating in the air. And again, of all things for him to find, it's that. And before he can do anything, Peeves comes out, sees him, and starts screaming about attack. Wakes everybody basically comes running into the hallways, finds Harry with Justin right after, and then everyone, of course, is now completely, thoroughly convinced that he's the heir of Slytherin and he's behind the attacks. And then the chapter ends with Harry being taken to Dumbledore's office, which we're finally about to get to see. Now, this particular chapter, really, it was all about, a good confrontation between Harry and Draco, but it was about establishing the parcel mouth talent, which is something that's going to come into play as we go forward, and we'll learn how and why. I don't think until probably not even book 7 when we learn exactly why and how Harry's a parcel mouth. But again, really, really good setup. Whether it was intentional on her part, that she knew she was going to use this at the end or not, I have no idea. But it worked out well if it wasn't intentional. And if it was, here we have right here in the middle of book 2, setting up like critical things for the finale of the whole series. And I like this chapter too. I mean, it was fun seeing Snape and Lockhart kind of go at it, and the kids just descend into chaos, and then of course the whole suspicion that everyone's on eggshells, everyone's afraid, everyone just needs someone to blame, because sometimes when there's something terrible happening and you can't focus your energy anywhere, that eats away at some people and they can't deal with it, so they need a scapegoat, they need a boogeyman. And Harry, being a parcel mouth, provides the perfect boogeyman for everybody, except for those who know Harry really well, of course. And I think there's a mention in here of Ginny also kind of just looking scared and stuff too, because Rowling has made a point to just periodically oh yeah, Ginny's here, don't forget Ginny's here, and everything's bothering her, and even though she's not part of anything going on, she's more upset about it than most of the students are. And she'll just keep dropping that every other chapter here as this book goes along. Just giving us that reminder that Jenny's going to be important. Now, and pretty much so, chapter 10, we got the important stuff about the chamber existing and being open before. Chapter 11, we got Harry being a parcel mouth, and then everyone now thinking he's to blame. And now we've got chapter 12, the Polyjuice Potion. Now, this is a fun chapter too. I like this chapter a lot. quite a bit in here, too. We get to finally see Dumbledore's office and all the paintings of all the former headmasters all snoring and all sorts of things all over. It's like a round chamber. And then he sees this decrepit bird who just then bursts into flames and then Dumbledore comes in. And we learn that this is Fawkes. He's a phoenix. And it was his time to die and then be reborn. And we learn a big foreshadowing moment here from Dumbledore. Because Dumbledore says, fascinating creatures, phoenixes. They can carry immensely heavy loads, and their tears have healing powers. And they make highly faithful pets. So again, nicely put right here in just the perfect spot. As again, just informational, world building stuff, but giving us information that will fit for the finale of the book. So that when the events play out the way they play out, they're not just pulling it out of thin air. She's again really good at this so far in book 1 here and in book 2 here as well, of kind of planting those seeds and layering them in. So it all kind of clicks into place and makes sense when you get to the end of the book. And Dumbledore is, I think this might be their first like conversation one-on-one, I think, since the first book, from what I remember. And Hagrid, of course, bursts into the room thinking Harry's going to be expelled. He's trying to defend Harry, and Dumbledore's like, yeah, I know. And Harry's like, oh, okay, I'll be outside, which is, you got to love that about Hagrid. He's just going to come charging through to your defense no matter what. And Dumbledore gives Harry an opportunity here to open up to him. Because Dumbledore knows that there's a lot more going on. And he's giving Harry an opportunity to come to him and just kind of confide in him. And Harry won't do it. Which is understandable. Harry's, 12 at this point? He has that fear if he tells people he was hearing voices before in the walls that they'd throw him out thinking he was crazy. And now with the parcel tongue stuff, he's trepidatious about trusting even Dumbledore. Because Dumbledore at this point to him is still just the headmaster of Hogwarts. And they don't have like a real personal friendship developed yet. It's still pretty early on. And we get, in this chapter as well, we get a glimpse of how distraught Ginny is over all the attacks happening. Which, again, another reminder that she's there, just kind of pointing her, bringing her back into the reader's consciousness periodically. And one of my favorite things, though, about this particular chapter again, it's Fred and George. And how they're walking down the halls in front of Harry, like announcing, out of the way, here comes the heir of Slytherin. Move aside. And just turning it into a big giant joke because they know Harry's not the heir of Slytherin. They know Harry's not opening any chambers of secrets and attacking people. So they're treating it to the maximum absurd level that they can just to kind of be there for Harry. And Harry really appreciates it. But then in this chapter too, we get another Christmas at Hogwarts. And even though they're really small little moments, they really do seem to infuse this book, particularly these first couple of books. It's hard to not associate like Halloween, Christmas with these first 2 books in particular. But while everyone's feasting, it's Polyjuice Potion time. So they sneak off after they've filled their bellies. They finish off the formula. They get the cupcakes. They knock out Crab and Goyle, get their hair, take their shoes, put them in. They all drink. And Harry and Ron turn into Crab and Goyle, and then Hermione won't come out of the stall. And she won't tell them why, and she just says to go on without them. So something's gone wrong with Hermione's. But Harry and Ron are like, okay, we're just going to go do what we got to do. And they spend quite a while roaming around because they have no idea where Slytherin house even is, how to even get in, where the common room even is in the castle. They've never been there. They have no idea how to get there, where they're supposed to go. It's Christmas holiday, so it's hardly anybody else around. Crabbe and Goyle are knocked out. There's maybe one or two other Slytherin. And they're just roaming all around. They remember seeing them like going downstairs, down into like the basement areas. And so they kind of just roaming around there. They find Percy, who apparently is probably just snooping around trying to catch the culprit himself. And then Draco finally stumbles across them and then takes them back to the Slytherin room. And we get to see the Slytherin common room. And this is a really interesting chapter with scene with Draco, where we learn that no, Draco's not the heir. He doesn't know who it is. He's frustrated that he doesn't know who it is. And the chamber has been open before, but it was open 50 years ago, before his father's time here at the school as well. And that whoever had opened it had been caught and expelled. And we hear the Azkaban prison mentioned here. And I don't know if it may have been mentioned in passing somewhere in somewhere in book 1 or here in book 2. But I think this is the first like specific mention of it, at least for Harry. Which again is nice because now we're setting Azkaban prison and it's what it represents in place in the whole Harry Potter world, which of course is going to play a big role in the next book. But just the whole scene with Malfoy, with Draco, is really interesting here, because we're seeing the damage being done to this kid by his family, by the prejudices of the purebloods and all this stuff, and the damage of being part of Voldemort's people originally, and trying to walk that fine line where staying true to the darker side of the wizarding world, but not getting caught. And we learned that the Ministry had raided their house, but they've got some secret chamber underneath the drawing room floor. So you get a lot, but it is a really like interesting moment. And Draco is not a good person at this point. I mean, he's hoping that Hermione's going to get offed by whatever's killing people, which of course is not nice, but that goes back to that whole mudblood kind of dark, seedy, like bad part of this wizarding world that Draco is being indoctrinated into particularly by his father. And but it's a quick scene though, because the potion's wearing off and they run out of there, get back to the bathroom, and then only to discover that apparently it wasn't the Slytherin girl's hair that Hermione had gotten off of her robes, but a cat hair. So she's kind of morphed into some large cat. And that's how the chapter ends, which I enjoyed how they did that in the books. I mean, in the movie, I enjoyed the whole Harry and Ron as Crabbe and Goyle scene. It was a little bit exaggerated in the movie. It was a little more toned down in the book in terms of their reactions to when Draco was bad-mouthing the Weasleys and people. But still, I enjoyed the movie version, but I enjoyed the book version better. And then we get now to chapter 13, and this is the Very Secret Diary. And since we've gone up to this point assuming that Draco's involved, Draco's the heir, Draco's behind opening the chamber and these attacks, that he's involved, to now discovering, okay, he's not. And in terms of story structure, we now have a new mystery. The solution they thought to the mystery is now wrong, and they know it's wrong. So now they're back at square one again. And in terms of story structure, it's now time to start moving forward towards what's really happening and what's really going on. Or at least you would think so. In this chapter here, we have Hermione's now going to spend weeks in the hospital, slowly transforming back into her normal self. Because unlike when you do it to a human, it lasts an hour and then goes away. It's not meant to be done with animals. So it's going to take her weeks to slowly have all the effects of it drain off. But while she's laid up in bed, they hear, they find Moaning Myrtle all extra upset. Someone threw a book down the toilet, tried to flush a book down the toilet. And after all these warnings from Ron about all these dangerous books, Harry decides, well, Hal, we have to see what it is. And he discovers it's a diary from 50 years ago for a T.M. Riddle. And Ron remembers the name because he had to polish all those trophies and everything as one of his punishments earlier in the book. So he remembers seeing that name because he spent so long polishing it and getting his own slug of slime off of it. And while Ron doesn't think much of it, and it's an empty diary, there's nothing written in the pages, just that T.M. Riddle name and the date from 50 years ago, Harry and Ron and Hermione are excited about it because they're making the connections. Because the chamber was open 50 years ago. This is a diary from a T.M. Riddle 50 years ago. T.M. Riddle was given some award for some special achievement 50 years ago. So pieces of the puzzle are all starting to fit as far as Hermione and Harry are concerned. That this T.M. Riddle must have had something to do with stopping what had happened the last time. So they need to try to find out who he is. And Ron thinks they're just, of course, wasting their time. Because Ron, at this point, he doesn't seem all that interested in the diary. He thinks it's pointless. And then, bring back to Lockhart. And I wonder how much fun J.K. Rowling had writing this character, writing the character of Lockhart, because he is just so utterly ridiculous. And to cheer up the school, it's Valentine's Day, and he just turns the Great Hall into the giant pink monstrosity, and not just the color pink even, but all this just overly, way over the top stuff. And even his robes are all and he's just, all the teachers are annoyed because he wants to do all these things. And he has a whole bunch of dwarfs show up and they start spending the day roaming around the school, interrupting classes, giving out valentines that people have for students for each other. And one of them tracks Harry down in the hall and everyone's there. Malfoy's there, Ginny's there. And the dwarf is like, I have a valentine I have to sing to you. And he tackles Harry. Harry's bag rips. All this contents spill out all over the place. A jar of ink breaks open, covers all over the books and everything. And the dwarf starts singing a love poem from, I guess, whoever sent it to Harry. But Draco picks up the diary. And then Ginny sees it. And Rowling makes a point of letting us know Ginny's looking from Harry in the diary, realizing Harry had it. And Ginny's terrified, which would seem like an odd reaction if Ginny has no idea what it is. But of course, we'll learn that she does. And Harry tries to get it back, does an Expelliarmus or whatever kind of spell to get it from him. And then Draco makes a snide remark about Ginny being the one who sent the love song to Harry. But the point here of this scene was Harry noticing that the ink got all over all of his books except the diary. The diary is completely untouched. So then Harry notices that and tests it out later at night. He drops ink on it and it absorbs in, and then he writes his name and the diary starts writing back to him. And we learn it's Tom Riddle. And Tom pulls him into his memories, shows him what happened. Because Tom's like, I caught the culprit. I stopped it. And then we're taken to that night, 50 years ago, where Tom realizes the school's going to get shut down if this doesn't get stopped. So at least what Harry sees is Tom sneaking downstairs and finding the culprit and confronting him. And we see it's a young Hagrid. And Hagrid's got this sort of big giant spider in a crate, and the spider runs off. Because Hagrid tackles Tom to prevent him from killing the spider. And again, Harry's only seeing what Tom wants him to see. And Tom is getting Harry to think what Tom wants Harry to think. That Hagrid was responsible for the girl dying 50 years ago and other people being attacked and the chamber being open, and that it was this giant spider that's the monster. And that's pretty much how the chapter ends, where he tells Hermione and Ron that it was Hagrid who opened the chamber 50 years ago. And that's where this section ends. And again, it's a really good section. We got past the whole front half of the book, and a lot of things started happening here in these 4 chapters. And mainly the discovery of Draco not being the heir, that they were going in the wrong direction, and this discovery of the diary, and then Harry thinking that it was Hagrid. So they've gone from this wrong assumption to now what could be right or could not be right. Now, obviously, I know I've read the book already, so I know that this Hagrid's not the culprit here. But this is Tom needing a solution and needing a scapegoat. But again, really nicely done set of chapters here. We get a lot of things advanced. We get past the main wrong assumption by the kids, and then they're now given a wrong assumption again to send them down a different path. That's going to be the wrong path as well. And just the whole mystery of who's this Tom Marvolo Riddle is, and why his diary is this way, and what other secrets are contained in here. And just there's been a lot added into this particular book so far. A lot more than the first book. I mean, we've had a similar, mystery going on, and they're trying to find a solution and everything. But we're getting a lot more layered into the wizarding world in this book, with the whole hierarchy of pure blood families, old families, muggleborns, half-bloods like Tom. We get the whole house elves, and they're sort of basically slaves, and that whole weirdness there. And we're getting now this Chamber of Secrets and a lot of like dark history, even in a wonderful place like Hogwarts. And we're getting more and more glimpses into this is a much bigger world than the first book kind of showed us. And we're just starting to get some of that here in this second book. And it's the third book when that really begins to open up. But we're right now getting a lot of pieces kind of like she's building up this story and building up this world chapter by chapter by chapter as we move through each book. And she does a really, really good job of it. My only nitpick in this whole middle section here about Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, about it being out of the way, no one ever goes there, no one bothers, is right outside of it is where we had the original attack with Miss Norris petrified and the writing, the chamber has been opened. It's like right outside the doors. So, and Filch has been spending a lot of time there. So there's a bit of a miss here on Rowling's part, continuity-wise, where how is Filch not going to see these 3 kids going in and out of this friggin' bathroom all the time when Filch keeps coming back to this spot because he misses Mrs. Norris and he's waiting for the culprit to return, like to the scene of the crime kind of thing. So Filch had to be conveniently not there a whole bunch of times for him to not catch them constantly going in and out of this bathroom, for him to not catch them brewing a potion in a stall in the girls' bathroom right outside where the original attack was. So that's like my only big nitpick here with the plot, is that looking back now, that seems like kind of a big miss, because there was no mention of Filch being anywhere really near this, and then she brings it back up because Harry hears Filch when he was like storming around all mad, and then finds Justin or something. And which brings back another point I forgot to mention. We keep seeing water and the spiders, and the spiders are running away. So we're getting more stuff layered in. Where why was Mrs. Norris only petrified? Why was Colin Creevey only petrified? Why was Justin only petrified, none of them killed. And though you don't realize it yet, particularly the first time around, I know it now, but each one of those has an element added into them that gave them enough protection for them to be petrified rather than killed. And Miss Norris, with seeing the whatever the monster is reflected in the water on the floor, Colin Creevy seeing it only through his camera lens, and Justin seeing it through, nearly had the snick, seeing it through the ghost instead of a direct shot. And then we'll learn that in the next week when I finish off the remainder of the book. Now, when I originally broke down the schedule, I was going to do the next like 3 or 4 chapters, and I was going to then have 1 chapter left. I didn't realize it. So next week, I'm just reading the last like 5 chapters, and it's about 93 pages just to finish the book off. It doesn't throw my schedule off at all. It's just instead of chapter 18 or whatever it is being read 2 weeks from now and then Prisoner of Azkaban, I'm just going to end it next week with ending it there with the book. But fun chapters. We're at the point where they realize they were wrong and are now not realizing that they're wrong again. But we get a glimpse now into Hagrid's past and why Hagrid won't talk about it and why Hagrid was kicked out. We get the first glimpses of that, and I imagine the first time that was kind of a shocker when I read it the first time, that Hagrid was responsible. And of course it's a misdirect, as you know now with the reread, but still very, very well done. Because the first book, they were wrong about Snape. Oh, it's Quirrell. And now they're wrong about Draco. And now, oh, it's Hagrid. But they're still wrong and don't realize it. So she's adding an extra twist and turn into this story to make it a little more intricate than the first one. And that's good. I like that. I like that she's going more in depth, as she should be, as the story and the series moves along. But let's see. So next week, I finish off the remaining chapters of this book. And I'm just pulling up the schedule here to just double check. And those are chapters 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Cornelius Fudge, Aragog, The Chamber of Secrets, The Heir of Slytherin, and Dobby's Reward. So, and then The Chamber of Secrets will be done. And then on Christmas Eve, I start The Prisoner of Azkaban. And I cannot wait for that. That's my favorite of the series, The Prisoner of Azkaban. And favorite movie of the series as well. I was very happy that my favorite book turned out to also be my favorite movie of the series. So I'm really excited to get to that book because this will be my first time rereading it. I want to see where these stack and where these hold up. Now, I enjoyed Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the book, a lot when I reread it over the past month or so. And I'm enjoying The Chamber of Secrets even more. I'm enjoying my reread of The Chamber of Secrets even more than my original read. I'm liking it a lot more because I'm seeing, with hindsight now, I'm seeing a lot more of what Rowling has layered in. But I don't want to ramble on too long. I am going to wrap this video up here. And again, next week will be the last set of chapters to finish the book off. That'll be next Sunday night. I'll be reading them, and Monday I'll be posting the video. And I am Charles of SirBookSage. Happy reading.